Hello, and welcome to the latest webinar in our series for the Autumn International Education and Schools Fair. So today we're talking about outstanding early years education for international families. And with me here today, I have Melodi Jordan, head of lower school TASIS, the American school in England, and Carmen Powell, children's author and education professional. So welcome to you both. Lovely to see you here. And I'm particularly delighted to be doing something on early years because we didn't cover that in our spring or our autumn fair last year. So hello to you as well, Carmen.
Hello.
So I think it would just be useful for our audience just to know a little bit in a sentence or two about your school and in terms of age ranges, what we're talking about. So can I start with you, please, Melodi? Tell us a little bit about TASIS and your role there and the age ranges you cover in the lower school.
Yes, TASIS has an early years classroom that's mixed age, starting at age 3 and then mixed with age 4. And then we move into the lower school, kindergarten through 4th grade. We also extend onto a middle school, which is grades 5 to 8, and then onto an upper school, which is grades 9 to 12. We're also a boarding campus for our older students.
Thank you. And Carmen, over to you. So you also worked in international schools. So
I have, yes. I worked as a teacher at ACS in Cobham and as a nursery leader at ISL in Woking. And my latest work was with the Preschool Learning Alliance, now called the Early Years Alliance, as an early years specialist going around visiting settings and supporting them with Ofsted reports to try and get them to pass. I'm also a children's author, and I've got my 3rd book being published at the end of this month.
Great. And would you just like to tell us the names of your books?
Oh, the names of the books. I've got Matthew and the Magic Goat. And this is very much about the current topic of looking after the environment, Sprite and the 2 talking turtles. And I've got a Christmas story called Sprite's Christmas Flight that's coming out at the end of this month.
Brilliant. So we'll touch on that as we talk through. So thank you very much. So let's start. This is a good opening question. So why is early years education so important? And in particular for international families who move quite frequently. So Melodi, would you like to start that?
I think early years education is critical as a foundation period, regardless of whether families are international. It's a place where children learn social emotional skills. They learn how to be more independent. They learn about the foundations of oral language, literacy, maths. So it's a great place to start the educational journey. In an international setting, I think it's critical because those early childhood age children are becoming part of a bigger community. And when families are international, it can be really difficult to build and connect, build those relationships with others. So it's a really powerful place for students to develop friendships and become a part of a larger network.
And Carmen, for you, you were teaching very young children, but it might be a temptation for families to think, oh, well, we'll start them school at 4 or 5 or whatever. Why do you think it's so important to introduce the children to an educational environment early on?
It is very important for young children to attend early years education because research and science has proved that 90% of the brain develops in the first 5 years of life. So it's so important that they're exposed to opportunities for learning, just like Melodi just outlined there. And it's very important that parents are also extremely looked after when they're in an international school. They have that sense of belonging there because invariably young children in early years, they're very much dependent on their parents being happy. If the parents are happy, the children are happy.
Exactly. So tell us a bit more about parents. How should they decide, or how can they best decide, Melodi, do you think, to decide which is the right setting for them? And obviously give examples of what you do to introduce the young children to your school.
So I think whenever possible, families should visit a school. Now we have so many virtual options. You can really get a sense for how the school feels, even if you can't be on the site. And that is really critical to how you fit. I think there are schools for every type of child, and early education it's especially important that parents understand what the school is offering and decide whether that approach is a balanced approach that the parents believe is the right fit for their child. So in the example of my school, we really encourage parents to understand that we are balancing this social emotional development and these early academic engagements all through play, all through exploration, but there's a real balanced approach to that. So, families need to understand how the school is looking to develop young learners and make sure that suits what they're looking for.
And of course, many families are a bit nervous about introducing children to a new school or starting school for the first time. So how important is it to settle them and transition them properly?
Transitions are so important. It's good to get in touch. Generally, I work very closely with admissions. So as soon as the family signs up, and they can sign up anytime during the year, depending when they're arriving in the UK, I would be quickly emailing, getting in touch with the parents to introduce myself and ask them if they've got any concerns, get information about the child, that sort of thing. And also, importantly, give them the details of the class parent for that classroom. Mm-hmm. Class parents are so valuable, are absolutely wonderful, because they're the ones that actually pull together the parents in that classroom to organize gatherings. This is where the community starts, from the class parent. Organize gatherings, tell them where the shops are, tell them where the best places are. Do you know what I mean? If they need anything, that is their first port of call, I feel. It's absolutely wonderful.
We know what it's like to be new. We know what it's like to be transitioning. And I think that there's a really unique culture in an international setting where teachers and students and even the staff, everyone on campus understands that transition and understands how challenging it can be and how everyone goes through that process differently. So there's a natural kind of support system built into just everyone knowing what that's like. Then there's also the structures that schools put into place. One of the things we do for new families is we create a community. I think Carmen mentioned that earlier, that, it becomes a support network. So having, start of school picnics where families meet each other, having buddy families. So people have already have a family they can go walk in the park with, before they've even started school, ice cream socials. We even allow families to come on campus after school and use our playground so that they can have play dates. And it's not just an opportunity for the children to be together, but it's an opportunity for parents to connect and create those structures and support systems. And so those little tiny things that international schools do, the thoughtfulness that goes into transitioning, not just the child, but the family, is really special. And I think in the classroom, as Carmen said, I agree with everything she said, but we also do things like creating time in the curriculum to have those conversations. We have a really strong PSHE program that focuses on expressing ourselves, what it's like to be new. We talk through all of these emotions that people can go through, and creating that network in that time and space in school is really important, so that everybody understands that what they're going through is natural and they have the language to talk about it.
Now, this might be a good opportunity, Carmen, to tell us a little bit about how your books also welcome everyone and explore inclusion.
I do love inclusion. And one of the things I'm very proud of is that I've been able to create stories, adventure stories, and it so happens the main character has a disability, but it's never referred to. A lot of books that I've had with disability, a lot of children would not look at, because it's like, he does that, she does that. It's focusing on the disability, and children don't want to see that. But this is actually a story. And a lot of the time, they don't notice the disability until, for example, we come to the bigger page where, because he grows like Alice in Wonderland. And then we come to this page, sorry, it's torn my book, I've opened it so many times. And they say, oh, it's a wooded leg or a metal leg. And then we talk about it. It's a prosthetic leg. I happen to have a real prosthetic leg of a child for the children to feel if they want to. And this is what inclusion is about. It's about putting a positive spin on disability. It's not about disability. It's about the adventure. It so happens the child has a disability, but it shows children that they can still do all sorts of activities, if not more. A lot of these children are really physical and they do a lot of stuff.
But over to you, Melodi. I mean, inclusion, you've got lots and lots of different nationalities at your school, and some children's language may not be as good in English as others. There's native language support. Can you just tell us about the sorts of other things that you do to welcome children and help everybody be included throughout the lower school?
Right. And in an earlier setting, particularly, I think inclusion is a natural natural component of the program because every child is developing differently. So teachers are trained to look at that continuum of development. And, you know, they're masters. Early childhood teachers are masters at documenting and observing that learning so that they can plan forward. So students are getting this individualized approach. Teachers are looking what they can do, what they're exploring, what questions they have, and then they're planning for the next engagement. So whether a child is learning English or they have some other developmental needs, the teachers can identify what that is and where they need to go. I think with English language learners, I think that we are creating such a vocabulary-rich environment through play. And so there's a lot of connection directly back to what these things are that the kids are engaging with. How can they build that vocabulary in that natural setting? So I think in the early childhood setting, well, in the lower school in general, children develop language quite quickly a lot of the time because there's always this natural connection back to the real things. There's not this abstract learning that we get as adults that make language learning difficult.
And just while we'd also, thank you very much, that's really interesting. So while we were just touching also on environment and environmental things, sustainability, I'm sure you're well aware that there are lots of conferences going on and interest from young people in environmental issues. That also links us to outdoor space and well-being. So can we just would you like to switch back just to your particularly environmentally impacting book and just give us your take on why you thought this was an interesting area, and then perhaps Melodi, we can go over to you and we can talk about some of the practical things that you're doing to introduce children to the science and the other angles.
Absolutely.
Because it's allowing children to really engage with nature, and the more they understand it, the more they know how much nature gives back to us. So, for example, I've always encouraged schools to sign up with the Potato Council. They send seedlings every February for schools to be able to grow potatoes. They have PowerPoints on field to fork for the children, different age groups. They have lots of handouts for parents about healthy eating. So it's a really great package for them. Carrots are also easy for the children to grow, and they'll see what happens when you put things in the ground and you water them and you tend to them and how they grow. So it's absolutely vital that we have children out there interacting with nature and understanding the different seasons. And of course, with that comes the whole idea of plastic in the environment and also recycling and how important that is. Children, if they're exposed to nature, and they will, embrace it with all their heart. And we have such wonderful selection of books to use as well to support all this thinking, books that would open up these discussions and information about nature and animals.
So what do you do at TASIS then with the different age ranges to encourage children to have environmental awareness, but also so that they're not anxious and concerned about it?
Well, I think in the early years, particularly, one of the common statements you'll hear is that the environment is the third teacher. And I think that actually spreads across the whole lower school, really, because what we're doing is we're setting up learning engagements that allow children to ask their own questions, to have their own investigations, to create their own inquiries. And if we're watching that carefully and we're monitoring and pushing the learning forward, That's how children really start to ask questions about how they can help. In the early childhood, students are at the center of everything. It's a very egocentric little world they live in. So it's starting with them and spreading out. How can I help? How do I matter? How do I impact this? How can I make change? In those really small, natural ways. And as students develop and get a little bit older, they can start to ask more sophisticated questions about impact and change. My student council right now in grade 4 is already starting to think about how they can get others to use our local gardens more, to go out and do gardening, because they've had such positive experiences. They want to start having other learning engagements out there. They've been asking their Spanish teacher to take them out. So understanding that they have some power in making change and taking action. It's really quite a fascinating and wonderful thing.
That is so good, Melody. I think that's impressive what your fourth graders are doing. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And we just touched on there about anxiety, because I know we've had some young children can feel worried about, what environmental impact. But also, let's just have a little discussion about anxiety, and if children are worried about coming to school, and particularly in the context of COVID and the new normal, when it's a very confusing time for young people. So firstly, Melody, it'd be interesting to have your observations. I mean, how have you found going back to school and the different age ranges, how they are reacting, and how do you allay any fears of the children, anxieties of the children, and of course the parents?
These are really great questions. I think the first piece of to understand is that school for a lot of children is a safe space because of the structure it provides. It gives a lot of comfort knowing how the schedule will look, how my day will start, how my day will end. Teachers are really great at always posting their schedules. These are small things that give children a sense of security. And so I think there's a lot of relief for most of our children in being back on a campus in a school setting, and for parents too. We all know that this was an incredibly challenging time for learning at home, not just for the children, but for their parents. And I think that we were already seeing the need to focus on mental health and well-being even before COVID happened. But I think it's given us the strength and the courage to identify that this has to be a core part of our program. And I think schools that are doing it right, my school, although I'm new, this school's been taking an incredibly strong stance on social emotional development, and the way that we balance that kind of, we having morning meetings every morning to talk about what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we're bonding, how we're connecting, to give children space to talk about how to make change, how to take action, to have these scheduled, structured lessons that allow children to talk about social emotional skills. I think that being home and being away from other friends, a lot of our children have regressed in the way that they understand how to speak to others, how to ask for help, how to solve problems. And some adults are experiencing those challenges as well. So giving that space and time and accepting that children just are where they are, rather than focusing on where they should be. I think that makes for a much more successful learning environment.
Yeah, I agree.
Good. So I'm afraid we're running out of time. We could talk forever, I think. It's a fascinating topic, and lots of anecdotes to support what you both do. But I think let's end on celebration, because I know, let's have a little sneak preview of your book, Carmen. You're talking about one of your favourite celebrations, and then we can widen out the discussion to Melody, who can share some of the wonderful things that are going to go on not only this time of the year, but around the course of the school year. Right. So, big reveal, Carmen.
The big reveal. It's a Christmas book. It's on its way out. It's with the printers at the moment as we speak, and it's called Surprise Christmas Flight. I am so excited because I absolutely love Christmas.
Yeah.
I love Christmas. So I've just got these photos on my iPad at the moment, but I love the picture. It's almost like a selfie of the reindeer with Sprite and
What is the thread of the story? And
Right.
touching on your inclusion points,
Yes.
it's a really nice way to engage not only parents but grandparents and very young children.
Yes, it's a wonderful story about a problem with one of the reindeers while it's flying. It hurts its limb, and Santa is forced to land. And of course, he lands in Sprite and Matthew's garden, and they wonder if they can help. And of course, they can. And the thing is, the reindeer at first weren't quite sure that the dog can help. And they were being judgmental. Oh, he has no hooves, he has no antlers, he's not big enough. You know how quickly some children can judge others from their appearance. And this is a really good way of discussing, is that a nice thing to do. And I've got some wonderful illustrations. The illustrators did a really good job about the head of the dog looking down whilst they're all bombarding him with why he shouldn't help because he's not good enough. It doesn't look like a reindeer. But of course, magic happens, and the dog grows big at the size of a reindeer, and off he flies with Santa, and, you know, he's at the front, and he manages to deliver all the presents to the children, whilst the reindeer, who was unwell, stayed with Matthew at home, and he looked after it and told it jokes to keep it company and keep its morale up, which is great, isn't it? Because that's what we like to do when children are well, trying to cheer them up. And then they got a lovely trip with Santa at the end, just to say thank you. It's a really lovely story, but it's about not being judgmental. That's the moral story behind it. And again, Matthew here has got a prosthetic leg, and because he was in bed when Santa and the reindeer land, the prosthetic leg, he's not wearing it. It's by the side of his bed. So I'm really hoping when I'm reading this to children, and I love them to decode the illustrations, they can pick on it and we can discuss the prosthetic leg more. But it's not, there's no mention of it. It's just, they have to notice it.
Brilliant. So that's a really nice way to end the year and also get some powerful points in for young children. So I will look forward to sharing that. So Melody, what will you be doing at your school as we approach the festive season? And then maybe just have a few words about International Day, which those sorts of celebrations, which really bring your community together and honour all the different cultures and nationalities that your school represents.
Well, we're doing some fabulous things for the holidays. We are having holiday concerts and things like that. But something that's spreading across the entire year, if you don't mind me mentioning that, is focusing on growth mindset and neurodiversity. And this is a theme that we have. All of the kids have been learning about this theme. They've read books around it. And the theme is we all learn in different ways and we all have different strengths. And so this has been something that we've been talking about in assemblies, and students have been setting their own growth targets and talking about how it's okay to be different. It's okay that we all have differences. And it's been really exciting. So we have this lovely little animal. He's connected to some stories that we've been reading, and each class takes the animal, keeps him for a few weeks, and he watches what they've been doing and how they've been learning differently. And they share at the assemblies, and again, giving those students that kind of ownership. They share their differences and how they've learned differently. So kindergarten's already presented, and that's been fabulous. And they did some very fabulous growth mindset dances that they've shown everyone, and so it's been fabulous.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all about your schools and your books, Carmen, and your wealth of experience that really shines through. So thank you very much indeed. I'm sure the key message there is early years is certainly very important and a wonderful introduction to education, and of course a wonderful grounding for a flourishing future. So thank you very much, Melodi Jordan and Carmen Powell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So here you will see details of Melodi Jordan, who is head of lower school at TASIS, who has been speaking today. She has contact details here of TASIS, the American school in England, if you wish to get in touch. Carmen Powell, children's author and professional educator, and there are details of her book, and you can find out the details via her website. And this is myself, Managing Editor of Relocate Global. Please do get in touch with us. The website is full of fabulous resources and news and information every day. And of course, we are celebrating our International Education and Schools Fair at the moment. So please do enjoy part of the International Education and Schools Fair and enjoy more useful and informative webinars. Thank you very much for attending.